Some slow, with the Buddha Samai, Aquatamai, don't put some up for one more show. Yea, they bet you near teacher money. Yan shed your man and no for dryer. Yan shed brow bread, will be over 70. Ghana ye entry on a mere money brain your part. Now, Miss Slow or no, we didn't quote a young food. One by your independence, Miss Slow. Yeah, idea, so. And I'll continue. Near your majority of parliament. Say, your majority of parliament. You be another quite easy for the world. You want majority for them, your honor more. She means slow one matter. But the circle of when you and some so. You'll be a dear, you'll be a dear fighter one. Then if I one wing, I never slow. One wing in na. Young and 2 years for you throw. That's why it is the 4th time back. And now for 4 and but it's better to be a messenger in the ruling party than to be a general secretary.
Oman FM.
Now the co-position, the one for the general secretary there, and yeah, a ruling party now a messenger prayer. For the past 3 elections, the friend is a chart of constituencies are winning by less than 1,000. I guess a winning constituency, gap will be winning and do 1,000. We share northern regions now. MPP, who's a baby, a NDC stronghold, no be a winner. Make say NDC no. There's division in their camp. Uber MPP Swa. If there is apathy from a strongholder, a cancer wound to me. Apathy say Obuwa Onusia constituency A, you win by a margin of 12,000 votes. Into the candidate we win primaries. Into me to be winner. Yes. Candidate, president candidate will win, parliamentary candidate will win, but also we say 1 or 2 or party the vote so better. Any friend a party.
FM. Oman FM.
Abusa for Mubia Kaba Mubia Eba Oman 107.1 FM Election Reference Center Ebrena Abusa starting on 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Abusa for from Gordon Asarbedia Komene Obotenti Komna Kwachi Energy Media Yedi Enimun Kakaka National Musaso Mesa so Edandan se fa sa Kakakra. Said the start no 14 September and the Media start na men kan tu ya homo mudie but bosumi mi no mayo and bosum ba ko afa da bebe so but me gidi say ya start bear fruit no feedback na bosu afọ mode maye no ye ni gi ho ye da mase corrections so mode maye suggestions mode maye no ni nyina ye da mase you take everything on board na said the be ya said mo pen on ye be na sa so ama kama ama de sekusi no yakopɔ ya adoma bibia be si start ye ko eastern region ya ba ye ko central da ba greater Accra ene yakopɔ adom ene so a different week new week ye ko western north na western north no de slow mosa so mensa de western north buy for the past 2 days me didi nkomo na ya na nya obi a metaka sa ansem no but I can tell you feedback na ya tifi western north no wo MPP ni wo western north wa bo wonsema wo me gidi se bibia da no form da bokọ ho no mo very very encouraging very encouraging na wo koka keka na obi aso bo regional chairman no so abaso eno nti regional chairman yinim dia wo ye yankofo ebo abaso sa no enti no to aso ade koso ye no jame adoma wukuada jame adoma wukuada western regional chairman of MPP western north chairman jame adoma wukuada oba betena studio ne edi enkombo so far no 9 seats and the western north 9 seats and the western north na je say ya koye say o da man bobo 9 seats na western okon wa western north a ye was ahwe oso hodum and wo dwaboso ye bodi ye wa win ye was swaman bebie ni anwia so bekwai and wo bia east and wo bia west and then akontomra na enema ekoso ho no de so far no me de meka say eye enti ye ne mpanifo ntase a of course ye ne Akbenefsen post ebedi enkomo no wodi ebia data no and why analysis na my so far for the past so the best 2000 ho bo ba ebia na ekoso na eba format say ya me say Mugabe before me nu bi eye ho no mo bodi ani dwaboso so far no etu say some ho ensem ho enti no ye bedi ko ba before be ko no ye be ko eastern region obi anu say o mampanyi eko eastern region na just na enipa tugu krom enipa tugu kromo papa nti na be ko eastern region kakra bi ye din ko bo say pa straight away na ye ko but in the course of the program na MPP before a press conference e wa Alisa Hotel na mate so mbe ye kuku politics so far and then the MPP ba ye o ma ba be kuku sector no be ho press conference nti me e kakra so o mo ba say pa ye be ko Alisa Hotel kwa fa na live ye wie say pa then we come back to the studio na ba beto ye nkomo so of akwa ba
so go now
no fa wo tu kan one day pe kwa Ghana from here now now for when now for kwachi when na
na nu pe
just be say na for mo now of yes of anope ya ewie mo ni so na me say me fa kira koto watermelon bi me yes me to watermelon na me to 2 cedis so na mami ne bad na etwa mami ti me man 5 cedis and was we need say me so me 2 cedis am yi na me de man kwa mami ni anyway dear ese godon ne na mamuna me say jame
o ya ka
na me pentem da bram anam esame ha esame no smas na esame but voice na what ye no but still na me deny eso ba me we da me ka jo se batcho na me afa chame aba na nipa wo na isa na nko bon be koso nti me ba be chira obi e to fa wutu kwan ya in fact na hankofo pa
senti na ye nche
ya na won nche no
gumo ana ya ebi kakra
of a western north na very interesting very very interesting but before be ko ho no yenko eastern region o man panye ko eastern region no wudi a chiri kakra
me di a chiri edi mani di a chiri pa na on say said o che hen kan o hwa say eastern region no fambi ana fansa fandodo no on say eastern region mu achiche
yes
so we pay one of the diverse regions of Ghana eastern
and had pa
nipa dodo nipa horo a etim kroma na ankasa ewo ho so say the say ne e kan no if free say ye de free e hye bomu a free greater Accra o de fruit free soro ha yi
abri ha yi koye
beduase abri famwa kwapem fam so e de kokosi akropon na afa akropon chi abriu so na afa de o ko gbanfo imu ni ade sa so na e de crobofo nso so abem
yeah
almost so constituencies no say numbers wom fasa akotwam wa sojaman ya say akrade ya sojaman no o ja na nsen ba bia to draft sem for yi
akrade ho
omba be si pempi no Japan for ye nananom yi for asas so na wasa tra Japan chi ho so afeni na wo ko enkura horoso senso so one go straight after Domi Bridge so one go straight now offer the Bekum so aha almost in Volta region and a boshia enumfo yade ansana ko Foridia FM awade yi so my asantefo new jabi so ansana achim so the three achim states so aba semwa kokosi asaman kesi yes kofasa mankasi kokosi odan ya din
ekwa kosi fosu
yes
aha kofa kosi for say no be fa kofa be kwai kwan so yeah
fa rakase no enche no opie eastern so aha on say yes on say ya was wedro so watchim
yeah I said what you swedru what tra odan na wo ko swedru odan swedru avisa and as I fa asante acham south kurampo so a wo fa bogu ekofa yihon mu out to tomu akopia fosu ni ade
yes wow ansana kwa unso aba
from the porno
yes ansana from plains
and so I heard the nipa bebre president ni
mo a from plains there aba and o mo ne asante region so akwa bohye
e wo fodo ho
yes amana praso no area inte ya regional eso nipa horo bebre na wom de mo hwa won a wo ho na o support MPP no obo homode safi no obeyi o mo anim yie o matimi avote hwa e o feel constituency start say register higher numbers for MPP o dey say chebi account it to na be president chebi ba hwe constituency ne corner nimpa wo eastern region of Amakwata
atiwa
zane be chebatuwa east and west what I say a corner in the last election no on also register more than 82%.
Wow.
In eastern
region
yes and na they say chebi so account board first no ko for duanom no
na yentie mu no
yes new job before 2012 no nine people we know hopa for strange region
na bibi
gap no close so and this say no on wo hwa a wo nyina no on pese o mo sa etremu biem
yeah
so on pese o mo sa the people margins
ekosro
yes and na nso so afri ho so no bia no o chirifa
for say pakod
abra na entino they are excited so ena omo fair share of niema kakra omo sabeka no nso so koso akwan ye bebre ni ade koso of course your niema ye general enwuma suamu ni ade omo benefit Koforidia township ona ye kam krado do a school enrollment
omo
school high school in Koforidia omo register enrollment a was in fact Eastern Regional Minister or country or our network society with MPP by free senior high school enrollment I was second cycle institutions I was Eastern Region now across by 53%.
Oman FM
across by 53%. And yes, can you imagine say 53% no? Emu half if I say if I say 26%, etna fear. Offer any part 26% no what use percentage wise what the bad numbers are that I say would if I say be a 5,000 would the let this be moderate any part 5,000 pay at if you don't mind man school offer do you can imagine number of criminals are a bit of system no
what then make us say see the doctor do chumdie example. So no owie na ma oni PS no. Ni nua ton preko.
Ni nua preko no koton yes.
Nti kana ni nua ni preko no wanko school. Be ma tenten gram.
That over can you imagine be ma tenten gram na ahomache wo otu dan ase.
Ana obeshi ana ne tra ne ti abofre.
Eda ne kon
ho. He's not different from
Obia. Yes.
The only difference is go school. No are pushing his idea could do America. When the schools are tea or the work or the Nyakwakum or they say and impactor or the other.
Yeah.
Can you imagine say Kia one susa so you're no susa be and pimnumpe. I was sentiment
and Cowboy say yes, Ghana say
Cabin say Ghana say and education now what they can and ya they take you for granted eastern regions so no almost share
Lumba born you be na minim nyum title what dedicate my ma na him say Friday Friday na meetie na me wo se lumba born one we won say that to me tie baby an wo ka say ma be ko school na Ghana constitution baby fa ma ho no obetima kenkan atiase.
Oh, I see.
Ai what born wo dem e bi abwaje bi teba be yama na abwaje ba hwehwe sa anwum no wase ombetima kus ma betima ku school na Ghana constitution na fa ma ho no o ma kenkan no matiase no ho rights.
Yeah.
Oh, eti obi ko school kakra bi no otimi kan 1 2 pe no ote ne ba ase a ma amamu e ba from.
Yes. Nama entase enso aba.
Amtase so aba.
God in statistics no hot chess and sana free senior high school beba no. I was southern sector. I include eastern region, central region mni ade no. Afi bi ankrofo mu gain admission to second cycle institution no. Anya bi emu 30 to 35% there.
Omutimi nko.
When you admission all right. But your baby a school no.
Ontimi nko.
Because no ma ntimi nko raise fees no. Enko tia deposit. Enko toto nema enko yesei sese akwa ye fin enura na obi the information bi ma me wo kwa aman me krom na menya sa ot store bi animu ana papa bi maami bi bae ena oba be kra store wura no se wo fa ase no me de no ko ena so yo ene okwa oni nyame nko ne anje okwa eno na papa no ono tikuma so ye pensioner ena o ta akokwa aman ni ade mu oye no busa ni store run say we ye hwan no so ma mi na ne babai okwache mota Gordon okwache mota
ache mota
yes nanka so free kwama owie kwama Jesus
na ko ne hwan
ono ko ne
hwan bishop ya wusu ansa ete ko ben wase akwara wa ben ena wase binya nyanya kwanya mekọ prempe college ofa ya wase ya bo no akana de brami
yes akana de brami mpa ono ne papa so ekoko ka wo so mpe no kwasem na ketu akata enti coming to eastern region no oden nyanwanwa se omo nyina omo atu adi na nachi esan se enema a woye mom dos na omo pese enko say eastern region ato aba na wie na fe aye tight omo uhwehwe 60% kra wunya said of am akwantanom de nenam 82% ni ade dada no a che before ni wenum nyina nso e follow no e bia eastern region for hwe se esese omo nso so ade a opɛ de na opɛ When you say that, Lumba ne na you know bomb na champo. I said yeah, I didn't pay yes. When him say Sasu favorite songs back on. Hey, and come there. First be home. I didn't pay now. Sasu funny agro crack. Okay, and you know, wrapping up our eastern region, no. The air can say. Said ya kano you few constituencies maintain me ho ase bi ewo ho me giri se party no kra no nanado ankasa e kan ho asem e bia so omutimi siesie no na omutimi eye omo a e bia omo call primaries omo nse bi omo awoso omo ho omo awoso we nagu ebinim so e da so hante omo anasa omo mpe Gordon nka last week na me ni ha mete say I'ma say akwati a homo kekan say.
Yeah.
So, but Gordon, let me say obi awadofo o ja say ama say nso wadofo
yes
na nadofo no a omutu no fo no ye besra omo a yes say before primaries ye nyina na ye nim say de ama say ho awa ye ho fa o ja say wa ya de
oh yes yes
so say be oba ne ngumasu ankwa ni mu oba baba jama esre no oba parliament oba ye dey ni say oba but Gordon a party na battery so no gina de bae no two words about it and can be no wa kire say ebia 2016 na ma say person oba independent anka
obetimi awini
there is no proof either yanka so no anu onye obi but a combination of factors including ono ankasa ne modern money said or ye ne campaign or carry ne ho any party no so a e kan bo mu no any party no combination so and I didn't babedru baby or babedru yen Gordon atoda enye ade a ye di bedu nyina na obefam nyina na wo ankasa ubetua so ka
dabi
atoda wo de jai ma bibi nkoma hwe ye to about 2012 a obi ahu se na nado ya wia no a ye to wi ajomahama the difference between no total vote of the parliamentary candidates combined any onu vote no it was over 550,000 where which last year there
which last year
ye nim dey see ye rising for convenience ni niema ya jani ni niema nyina ye pu asam no wie ye no na oman ni nyina ya hwe na nado e dey na pani ba bonti be kan o se oman ni nti oman na sumdue nti Gordon nka enipa pii wonsam enipa pii wo reason on betumi agyan so e dey ato obi so were e dey apanish nipa bi e dey ate omo ho e dey ate atua e dey aye bibi but bibi nti Gordon say wa ma say bibi nti na nkasa nkyerɛw so you may have every right you may have every reason you may ya dia di no bia ususu say ya ni wani ni ye eya oya eye say ni say but ni nyina mu no Gordon ubetimi de wano aka say MPP dachinti
yes
sabe metna ho ma NDC ababa be fa baidie me do MPP esene NDC NDC ba kwa akofa die
ni asa bo mi din se mi kura mpo na me ye ntina
NDC especially why they said they see call ye president ankaso mba from no wakasa ogusu ene wo kasa o ja say woni na de ahia me pa chow wo afutufo bebre but anyu afutufo nyina na wahu om ka kira ma say ne anyu om pe na asem nyina na onim om om aben no a om kan nsem gu na sum no baby an politics or the rise babeduru ye no anyu om nkwa na mata
dabi
I'm telling her you no nkwa na mata enti om modern say said the microphone nyina kan kira because God the men pass am a o kan now de ne nam now no baby adru eastern region no sa na no omo ka wi a omo nkosu hum omo ne losing candidate en kasa omo nko ayensu ano honorable member of parliament or ho ne campaign yes say bia dodra e bi ono an project no ho
ofa akrebi ampacho e be ko Alisa Hotel ne o wa hina kwakodi nkobo reporter e wo ho no nti akrebi be ai
and the God in the American say yanhwe regional minister
ofa yekwaba
and the new patriotic party NPP amanyo kono we dey see when you say that you are the bia Omusam trafo nhyiemu no aya woye no sector by sector na wetimi abo ensempa ne dawuro e de akire Ghana for nti sabra me no wakasa yi e ade a NPP amanyoko no ene dansi omasa ama akwanya bio se omone ensamtrafo bihia ewo enkrakropon mu eno nti Oman 107.1 FM idi de wo ahene entwibo isiako me mabepie mu ewo ha se ne mpani atumi se memra ha no sapepepe mabedru ha sisi amene Barnabas baby na ye wa se our certain video ni nyina kama say ye behwe ne de ye live feed no every Alisa Hotel na yetimi e de afrel na yahwɛ sɛ nneɛma ɛteɛ mpanimfoɔ a ɛwɔ npp amanyo kunum a bɛbɛpie mu ɛwɔ ha ɛyɛ yɛwura Joseph Boahin Edu a ɔno ɛna ɛyɛ CEO Chief Executive Officer ɛde Ghana Cocoa Board ɛwɔ ha saa so ɛna ɛwɔ David Asante Let My Vote Count Alliance ɔno nso ɛwɔ ha yɛwɔ ɛyɛ Dr. Gideon Boakwa ɔno na ɛyɛ kasamafoɔ ɛde ma ɛyɛ Vice President of Ghana's Republic ɔno nso ɛwɔ ha sei ɛna afei mekyerɛ Communications Director in Kratoba Fotene a ɔsa so yɛ Member of Parliament ma Adentan Constituency yɛwura Lawyer Yaboabin Asamoah ɛna sabri wakɔgyina podium n'anim a ɔbɛ address it asɛmputi ɛda so no sɛ NPP's Cocoa success story ɛno ne press conference no team a ɛda so NPP's Cocoa success story live from Alisa Hotel in Accra ɛna yɛde ɛyɛ live feed no every year ɛde abrɛw na yɛnim sɛ ɛyɛ Communications Director ɛbɛhyɛ ase aka sɛ yi ɔde baton no bɛma Cocoa Board CEO no no so ato aso de a mede sɛ yɛkɔ anim ne nyinaa no ɛti Oman 107.1 FM no ɛbɛte nti saa bere de yɛwura Yaboabin Asamoah ɛna gyina podium no akyi a wahyɛ ase a ɔkasa nti yɛnkɔ ne nkɔnkɔ
economic security than any other industry for well over 120 years and therefore demands quality leadership to sustain. It is also one area that John Dramani Mahama showed clearly that his goal was not to build on what he inherited, but to plunder. It is one area that the incompetence, corruption, carelessness, and recklessness of John Mahama as president was obvious to all, especially the ordinary cocoa farmer. It is one area which the president has treated with care, competence, and vision, in line with his overarching manifesto promise to transform Ghana by adding value to what we produce. A clear example of this, ladies and gentlemen, is cocoa processing. In 2016, the year that John Mahama and the NDC lost power, 27% of cocoa produced in Ghana was processed in Ghana. That is 27% of the raw material was processed in Ghana. Today, as we speak, that figure has shot up to 40%, with plans to set up more indigenous processing facilities. Cocoa is grown in commercial quantities in 10 of Ghana's 16 regions. So the new patriotic party, which since the days of J.B. Dankwa, Bafua Kuto, and Akwesi Abefabusia, has always been on the side of the Ghanaian cocoa farmer, is fully aware of what the industry means to creating jobs and providing incomes to families and communities. And that is why we continue to invest in the industry more than the NDC. Again and again, compared to the Mahama-led NDC, both in government and now in opposition, President Akufo-Addo has demonstrated better understanding of the needs of the country and the direction in which he needs to take us to meet those needs. The cocoa sector is another area where the president has demonstrated strong leadership and initiative, leading to the creation and sustenance of the first ever, and I repeat, the first ever African inspired international community price support system, the living income differential. This means that through the sustained and uncompromising joint efforts of President Akufo-Addo and the Ivorian leader, our farmers are now to earn an additional income through a US $400 per ton premium on the world price for cocoa. It takes strong and decisive leadership to win $400 more for our farmers. And that is why we are saying 4 more to do more for you.
Oman FM.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tetekwashi introduced cocoa into Ghana from Equatorial Guinea in the 19th century. Since then, a huge industry with multiple tentacles has spread throughout our economy. Indeed, between 1911 and 1976, Ghana was the world's leading producer of cocoa, contributing between 30 to 40% of global output. It is this feat of old that the MPP is determined to reclaim. And the programs that we are rolling out in the sector will deliberately and certainly see to that if we protect the way the MPP is managing the affairs of this country. Significant as cocoa is to the Ghanaian economy and national security, key challenges include lack of control over international shocks and local efficiencies. Ladies and gentlemen, this media interaction today seeks to bring to the fore what the President has done, leading the MPP government in the cocoa sector to restore and enhance progress. Naturally, in doing so, we must assess what we inherited. A credible Ghanaian government must have a credible vision for cocoa, not the underhand press conferences that are taken from rural areas once in a while on selective portions. Today is going to be a comprehensive look at what exactly Nanado is doing in the sector.
Oman FM.
The cocoa industry continues to provide foreign exchange, jobs, incomes, and a decent standard of living to thousands directly and indirectly. The current and biggest challenge is to localize value addition in order to deepen its contribution to skills, jobs, and incomes, as well as international value and brand. As the President says, it is manifestly unfair that we earn barely 6% of the value of an industry that between two countries we provide nearly 60% of the raw material. Between the Ivory Coast and Ghana, we are providing nearly 60% of the world's output of raw cocoa, and yet we earn barely 6% of that 100 billion a year industry. Prior to assumption of office by the MPP government, the cocoa industry was plummeting and in dire need of retooling, restructuring, and repositioning due to the high level of mismanagement, corruption, and incompetence that characterized the Mahama-led administration. In fact, even the chemicals that were needed to help the trees grow and bear fruit were badly compromised by the NDC policy of unbridled corruption. The evidence is there for all to see, including records with state institutions. Production of cocoa, having risen to a high of 1 million metric tons per annum as a throughput from the progressive policies of the Kufuor administration, declined drastically year on year under candidate Mahama as president. He could not even sustain the gains protected by his predecessor president, the late John Atta Mills. The NDC government under John Mahama chose to distribute what was meant to be free fertilizers indeed, in a way that became just another incentive for corruption. Rather than rehabilitation of the industry, a thriving fertilizer smuggling enterprise was created, some perpetrators being friends, family, and cronies of the then Mahama government. The country suffered colossal losses due to the hundreds of thousands of bags of fertilizers which found their way onto the markets of neighboring countries. These smuggling incidents, again, are very well documented within the relevant state agencies. Upon assumption of office, the MPP government decided to subsidize fertilizers by absorbing a large share of the cost and then retooled the fertilizer distribution process to improve equity and availability to farmers in all cocoa growing areas. Farmers do not have to pay upfront to get fertilizers. Farmers do not have to pay upfront to get fertilizers. The retooling has also eliminated opportunities for smuggling by middlemen. Moreover, very significantly, cocoa farmer cooperatives were reintroduced. The effect is that the farmers gained ownership of the processes, so that the farmers by themselves ensured effective, efficient, and timely supply of adequate amounts of fertilizers, agrochemicals, and implements within and amongst themselves through the regenerated cooperatives. The recklessness in the handling of the cocoa industry further caused a downturn in the financial position of Cocoa Board. The Mahama-led administration borrowed $1.8 billion through a syndicated loan during the 2016-17 crop season, despite the fact that the crop production for that particular season was far less, far less than what was borrowed. Like other interventions within the cocoa industry, cocoa road projects began under an MPP administration, specifically the Kufuor-led administration. The original core purpose was to evacuate the cocoa beans from growing communities to what was called takeover centers. But what did we see under John Mahama? Far from what the NDC will want Ghanaians to believe, at no point within the current government was it ever discussed or a decision taken to neglect cocoa roads projects begun under the previous administration. However, in order to deepen accountability and protect the public purse, as well as ensure value for money, due diligence had to be exercised. Cocoa roads projects were suspended for an audit to be conducted, especially after some anomalies which resulted in inflated costs of some of the contracts awarded by the previous government. The suspension of the projects allowed for a rescoping and proper alignment of funds, as well as open competitive bidding processes towards the award of new cocoa roads contracts. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, at this stage to state that the contractors who were awarded contracts by the previous administration and had genuine claims were promptly paid. During the 2017-2018 cocoa season, an amount of GAC 497 million was paid to some of these cocoa roads contractors. 497 million was paid to cocoa roads contractors whose contracts were awarded by the John Mahama administration. And another GAC 414 million was subsequently paid in 2018-2019 cocoa season, making a total of nearly $1 billion Ghana cedis paid in cocoa roads for awards made during candidate Mahamad's era. Also, road projects awarded by the previous government that were near completion in 2017 were allowed to be completed by the contractors. The records show that the Mahama-led government deviated from the original purpose and intent for the construction of cocoa roads. There was a heavy concentration on the construction of highways and in some cases roads in non-cocoa growing areas. A whopping 63% of the funds for cocoa roads was diverted to highways. 5% went to urban roads and the rest went to feeder roads. This situation has changed significantly in the current dispensation. That is why today the increase in tarred feeder roads across the cocoa growing regions in Ghana can be as high as nearly 40% in just under 4 years. 37% specifically in the eastern region, for example, from 34 kilometers in 2016 to 466 kilometers today, serving a genuine purpose of evacuating cocoa from the growing areas to the takeover centers.
Oman FM.
Candidate Mahama is indeed a curious man. He has shown some remarkable bravery in daring to speak on the contracts he and his spouse awarded for cocoa roads. He is asking for the government to publish what is already public, the audit report of the said cocoa roads contracts. First of all, for John Mahama, his habit was to award contracts even when he had no clue how to pay for them. Cocoa roots contracts awarded by the previous government, constituting 229 projects, amounted to some 5.1 billion Ghana cedis. This was at a time when funds available to pay for road construction in total was only 1.7 billion Ghana cedis. Specifically for cocoa roots, the approved annual amounts averaged 500 million for the Cocoa Board Infrastructural Development Trust Fund for the entire 5-year period of the program. Indeed, John Mahama committed 3.2 billion, 64% of that he did not have to just 74 projects. He committed 3.2 billion, 64% of a total fund that he did not have, to just 74 projects awarded by the Ghana Highways Authority, not the Department of Feeder Roads. The 131 projects under feeder roads was valued at just 1.5 billion cedis. Again, the average cost per kilometer of trunk roads in the contract awarded was 2.5 million cedis, more than double the kilometer cost of the feeder roads at 1.16 million Ghana cedis. The 140 contractors who awarded the 229 contracts, none of the contracts went through a competitive tendering process. Not a single one went through a competitive tendering process. The cost per kilometer was much higher than the average cost of other government-sponsored road projects. For example, for the Pristia Samre Boy Road, awarded to Asabia Engineering Limited, the audit report found that it was inflated by 121.85%. This is a classic case of incompetent economic management worsened by corruption. Also, several contractors were requesting payment for variation on contract amounts which were multiple times in excess of the initial contingency or variation amounts allocated. Whilst the Bahama-led government could not honor the payment of contracts they signed right from 2014-2015 cocoa season, they continued to sign additional contracts till 2017 when they left office, piling up dubious debts. Now let's look at how candidate Mahama's regime dealt with swollen shoot disease. Swollen shoot became widespread, threatening to bring our heritage cocoa industry to its knees. John Mahama's response was to ignore cocoa farmers, which led to collapsing the economy in vital areas such as the Western North region. It took Akufo-Addo and the MPP to bring life back to the economy there in that region. Prior to 2014, Cocoa Board was actively involved in the cocoa swollen shoot virus disease control program, and that program is usually referred to as CSSVD, as cocoa swollen shoot virus disease. That program had the following responsibilities before 2014. A, removal of diseased and contracted trees. B, compensation to farmers for trees removed, both initial treatment and replanting grants, and then the supply of free hybrid cocoa and economic tree seedlings for replanting, and of course finally treating farms and technical backup through extension education. This laudable social intervention policy on the CSSVD control and containment was changed by John Mahama in 2014. Farmers were asked to cut the diseased trees and replant themselves without any compensation whatsoever. Farmers were only given free seedlings. Moreover, once the cocoa trees were removed, the landowners took back their farms. Accordingly, most of the cocoa seedlings given to farmers between 2014 and 2016 were planted under asymptomatic and dying diseased trees, poorly treated farms, and in some cases abandoned. The seedlings were abandoned under the cocoa trees without planting because the farmers simply didn't have the wherewithal, the strength, the energy, the financial clout to replant the farms. Consequently, seedlings, even before planting, were infected by CSSVD and had to be removed, of course, at a cost to the state. The change in policy also led to the rapid spread of the disease, especially in the western north and eastern regions. The infection in the western north region was so severe that over 40%, 214,508 hectares of its total production area of 509,295 hectares had been devastated, according to a 2017 survey. At the national level, a whopping 315,886 hectares out of a total of 1.9 million hectares of cocoa farm had been lost to the CSSVD, thus seriously affecting production. Western North, which used to produce over 330,000 metric tons in 2010-2011, was now accounting for a mere 154,000 metric tons. The NDC government was characterized by poor cocoa bonus management and a short-changing of farmers with respect to cocoa prices. Though the long-held principle is to pay at least 70% of the FOB price to cocoa farmers, at the time the NDC left office, farmers were receiving only 65.2% of the FOB price. In the area of value addition to our cocoa beans, not a single processing plant was either conceived or built to boost our country's long-held value addition agenda and to create jobs and opportunities for Ghanaians with the appropriate skills. Rather, the West African Mills Company, WAMCO, an existing cocoa processing factory, was neglected and shut down in 2013 with a little over 254 workers laid off. Since 2017, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has led the MPP government to demonstrate its resolve to fix the mess left behind by the NDC government by retooling, restructuring, and repositioning of Cocoa Board into a robust entity in order to increase our cocoa production while making the life of the cocoa farmer much better than before. So we've launched into an entirely new series of cocoa interventions to bring the industry around. One of the major areas we are doing is the cocoa rehabilitation program. Under that program, the MPP government through Cocoa Board is bearing the cost of removing all diseased trees from farms. Cocoa Board has been tasked with directly overseeing the entire process from cutting to the replanting of the farms. Cocoa Board also provides compensation of GAC 1,000 cedis each to affected farmers and their land owners. The farms are replanted with disease-tolerant, early-bearing, high-yielding cocoa varieties at no cost absolutely to the farmers. During the 2-year-long rehabilitation period, Cocoa Board provides labor to work on the farms at no cost to the farmer. This has proven to be a far superior approach to rehabilitating affected farms and stopping further spread of CSSVD. This is the government that is working for the cocoa farmer and indirectly and directly for the Ghanaian people through the sustenance of the cocoa industry, our backbone. Absolutely no cost to the farmer for cleaning up the farm, replanting, and making sure that the replanted seedlings mature. Between 2017 and 2019, a total of 144,421,477 seedlings were produced and distributed to farmers over 2017, 2018, 2019. 144,000 seedlings free to farmers. Most of these seedlings were utilized in the western, north, and eastern regions for the pilot rehabilitation program that is financed by Cocoa Board, as alluded to already. The government is scaling up that program and therefore encouraged Cocoa Board to borrow from the African Development Bank $1 million, that's 23.3%, will be devoted to the treatment of CSSVD. Another innovation that has been introduced by the government is mechanization of farm maintenance through the dual-purpose pruner slasher. The pruner slasher introduction and other programs have been labeled the Productivity Enhancement Program by Cocoa Board. Productivity Enhancement Program. Now, the idea is to increase by significant proportions the production capacity of existing cocoa trees and ultimately enable farmers earn more from their labor without having to increase their farm sizes. So you come to one of those productivity enhancement programs, which is mass pruning with the dual purpose pruner slasher. You mass prune cocoa farms when you do a careful cutting of dead, diseased, and excess branches of cocoa trees ahead of a flowering season. Now, the impacts are tremendous. Parasitic plants, especially mistletoe, are removed. Pruned plants develop more flowers as the plants devote a lot more of their nutrients to the flowering process and then to fruit growth after pollination. These in turn result in significant increases in yield volumes from the same trees. So you are applying technologies to the same numbers of farms, the same acreage, and increasing output from that acreage. Now, Cocoa Board is conducting mass pruning of cocoa trees across the country. This is the first time such an exercise is happening in Ghana under Cocoa Board, directly related to the distribution of 100,000 pieces of dual-purpose motorized slashers and pruners to cocoa farms across the 10 growing regions. So you have the modern technology of the hand pruner slasher being given out 100,000 pieces to farmers. The slasher is far more efficient than the traditional methods of weeding and pruning. Their use reduces the chance of injury to the cocoa, such as branch tear, damage to the buds on the trees, and they also considerably reduce the fatigue associated with farming, as one needs not exert much energy when using the dual-purpose motorized pruner slasher. The introduction of this equipment is not only a recognition of introducing innovative ways of farming, but also the urgent need to phase out labor-intensive ways of farming. The drudgery of the use of machetes and hoes for weeding often drives farmers to apply weedicides on their farms, despite its major adverse impact on the trees and the flavor of the cocoa. So, Cocoa Board has made sure that having banned weedicides, the pruners and slashers are available. The dual purpose, they are named Sharp Power 40 motorized pruners, are distributed to the recognized cocoa farmer cooperatives, which we alluded to earlier, who are now handling the fertilizer. They are now handling the slasher pruners as well. So they own the processes and they equitably spread the use of the equipment, reducing cost per farmer. The other one, which is a major innovation, is hand pollination, going hand in hand with pruner slashing. Hand pollination arguably is the most important thing that has happened to the cocoa industry in Ghana since it was introduced. Now, what does it do? It is fertilization of flowers by hand. The male and female flowers are fertilized by hand rather than waiting for the bees to do that job. It is done by hand. And that means that a greater percentage of the flowers on the cocoa trees get fertilized, leading to massive increases in production. Averagely, a cocoa tree produces 1,000 flowers every season, yet only 5% of the flowers grow into pods. Compared to other countries such as Malaysia and Indonesia, which produce 2 tons of cocoa per hectare, Ghana only produces 0.45 tons of cocoa per hectare. To address this, Cocoa Board in 2017 launched the artificial hand pollination project in all the cocoa growing regions. Cocoa trees which naturally produce 20 pods, as we know it in Ghana, through hand pollination are now producing between 100 to 300 pods and even beyond. Consequently, many farmers are now developing and producing cocoa at record levels. Same farm, same number of trees, and you are getting hundreds of percentage increases in output from 20 pods to over 300 pods.
Oman FM.
The beauty about hand pollination is that it's also creating jobs, especially for young women. Cocoa Board initially engaged 10,000 youth as pollinators. That number has increased to over 30,000 at present. The skillful young pollinators are also being trained and assisted in establishing community-based service companies to offer pollination services to farmers. It is these young, trained people who are managing the farmer cooperatives and managing the distribution of fertilizers, chemicals, as well as managing the use of equipment that is modern, including the hand pruners and slashers. Science is also involved, and to that extent, Cocoa Board has introduced early mass spraying based on scientific evidence from CRIG. That's the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana. We call it CRIG, but CRIG. And CRIG has demonstrated that if mass spraying is done at a particular time, then you are able to break the cycle of breeding and reproduction of pests and diseases. And therefore, cocoa farmers have hailed the introduction of the early spraying schedule, the first part of which is carried out between April and May. It has ensured the annihilation of pests which hitherto could not be targeted due to lapses in the previous spraying schedule. What happened was that some farms were sprayed and some farms were left unsprayed. And then there were pretensions about which farms belonged to which political party card-bearing members, when in actual fact it was just being inefficiently and ineptly done. So it's the same farmer cooperatives who are helping to resolve this. As we've already said, we're also doing free seedling distribution. I've already told you about 144 million seeds that have been distributed for replanting to avert CSS, VD, and help establish new farms. Indeed, Cocoa Board has increased the number of nursery sites and staff of its seed production division, and consequently, the number of seedlings raised each year and distributed to cocoa farms have increased drastically and dramatically at no cost to the farmer. Steps have also been taken to modernize the production of healthy cocoa seedlings for the field with the adoption of the use of galvanized poles and treated lumber for the nursery structures instead of bamboo. The use of lasting UV protected receptacles instead of disposable poly bags. The new receptacles are environmentally friendly and are reusable, like I've said. The use of soilless media called cocoa peat instead of topsoil, which has become increasingly difficult to assess. What we call black soil is now very difficult to find. So they are using a formulation called cocoa peat. And then the sinking of boreholes and use of irrigation facilities in places where access to a perennial water source is a challenge, which previously was not the case. I have just alluded to
board of the government aimed at sustaining that core industry. Irrigation in cocoa, only the MPP led by Nana Akufo-Addo could have thought that far. Cocoa Board has begun piloting of irrigation systems, and they are supposed to provide alternative and supplementary water for cocoa farms to lessen the effects of climate change and harsh weather conditions on cocoa. These irrigation systems are ultramodern, solar powered, and were first tested by Cocoa Board in its seed gardens and selected farms across the country. As we speak, the irrigation systems have improved moisture content of soils, enhanced the retention of flowers of cocoa trees, helped to increase the size of cocoa beans, and increase productivity per hectare. Farmers with irrigation systems are able to produce cocoa all year round because the cocoa trees do not suffer from the extremely dry weather of the Harmattan season. This project is entering the next phase where many more farms will be served by that process. Increases in yield volumes following the installation of the systems are immediate. So at present, the installation is up to 30% of all cocoa farms. Over the past 3 years, Cocoa Board has consistently increased the number of frontline extension staff on the ground by recruiting and training over 1,300 youth within cocoa growing communities in order to provide extension services to cocoa farmers. These youth have markedly improved the frequency and delivery of quality extension services to cocoa farmers. It has reduced the previous extension agent to farmer ratio, which was 1 extension officer to 3,000 farmers, to the present ratio of 1 extension officer to 600 farmers, from 3,000 to 600. These are genuine, real investments in improving the cocoa sector for sustainability. Farmers are educated on good agronomic practices through rallies, group meetings, farm visits, home visits, and radio programs. They are also educated to appreciate that cocoa is a business. Farming in grass cutter and other livestock rearing, snail farming, poultry farming, soap making, detergents, porridge making, food and other cash crop farming, and mushroom production, amongst others. These the cocoa sector. Cocoa Board, beyond all this, has been working with women and youth in the sector. Since 2019, Cocoa Board has implemented the Environmental and Social Sustainability Project, ESSP. The project aims to improve environmental sustainability, eliminate child labor, empower women in cocoa production, and enhance their roles in their communities. Already, this project has trained and empowered over 6,000 women in cocoa farming. The current management of Cocoa Board has made it a deliberate policy in all of its activities to encourage women who are into cocoa farming to fully participate and take advantage of its many cocoa-related programs. Under the new policy to bring fertilizers, inputs, and other agrochemicals directly to farmers, women farmer groups and cooperatives have testified to the timely delivery of the agrochemicals from Cocoa Board. Many female cocoa farmers have been awarded and will continue to be awarded from the local to the national level for their invaluable contribution to the cocoa sector. As I said, the youth have not been ignored, and the Youth in Cocoa Farming Program is a module that's currently being run by Cocoa Board, who encourage the youth to engage in cocoa farming and encourage others to get involved in cocoa farming as well. Under this program, Cocoa Board liaises with traditional authorities and landowners to release lands to young men and women who are interested in cocoa cultivation on flexible terms. Furthermore, young cocoa farmers are encouraged to form youth groups. This allows easy access to extension education, cocoa input supply, and credit facilities. Dozens of youth groups, cooperatives with membership in the tens of thousands have been inaugurated and for the first time are receiving direct support from Cocoa Board. Such youth groups are also engaged as service providers by Cocoa Board for mass spraying, hand pollination, and for farm rehabilitation. The National Award of Most Promising Young Cocoa Farmer is also to encourage more of the youth to go into cocoa farming. Youth groups are then again linked by Cocoa Board to access credits from reputable financial institutions. So it's a self-sustaining cycle. Once you get in there, you are properly educated, you are hooked up to extension services, and then you become a service provider yourself, accessing the services for your own use and extending it to other farmers. As part of welfare and corporate social responsibility, Cocoa Board has long supported education in second cycle institutions by providing scholarships. Scholarship provision is the oldest of all the support services Cocoa Board has provided to farmers since ever. However, thanks to President Akufo-Addo, secondary school education in Ghana is now free for all. This has eliminated the need for Cocoa Board to provide scholarships to wards of farmers at that level. That's the free SHS level. Therefore, Cocoa Board is developing a new policy, and that's to channel former scholarship funds into the construction of basic schools in cocoa farming communities. Cocoa Board is identifying gaps where there are no school structures readily available and partnering with the Ghana Education Service to build new schools to fill those gaps. It's also partnering with the University of Ghana and other partners to provide programs of social inclusion and eliminate child labor. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the cocoa price, a very, very important area where our mischievous NDC friends try to score sneak points which are not theirs to appropriate. Only a few days ago, the government announced a new producer price of cocoa at 660 cedis per bag. It is by far the highest amount ever paid to Ghana's cocoa farmers, and a demonstration of the government's commitment towards the welfare of cocoa farmers. It's a substantial increase from the previous cocoa season when the same government was in charge. It is important to consider the fact that the government maintained producer prices in the preceding years despite a 40% decline in the international prices of cocoa. In adherence to a long-held principle that at least 70% of the FOB price of cocoa must be paid to cocoa farmers, the MPP has constantly exceeded 70% by paying 83%, 76%, and 76.6% over the past three cocoa seasons, compared to the NDC 65% before. In the face of the decline of producer price of cocoa within the global market and the mounting pressure by international bodies to reduce the producer price of cocoa, the government instead took a decision to safeguard the welfare of cocoa farmers in Ghana by maintaining the highest sub-regional producer price in the midst of a 2-year-long fall in the price of cocoa on the international market. This was at a time when Côte d'Ivoire had dropped its producer prices by 30%.
Oman FM.
The world market price of cocoa is the single biggest determinant of the producer price of cocoa. The reality is that no Ghana government can claim to have control over the world market price of cocoa at any moment in time. Therefore, to increase the revenue that the country earns from the sale of its cocoa, an ingenious new stream of income must be created. That is why the living income differential was introduced. Now, the living income differential is a component of the new cocoa trading mechanism championed by the Ghanaian government in partnership with the Ivorian government. It ensures that every ton of cocoa being sold from Ghana will attract an extra $400 in addition to the existing premium. This historic achievement reforms the way global cocoa is priced. The objective is to reduce the high levels of poverty among farmers in Ghana and Ivory Coast, who together produce more than 60% of the world's cocoa. The main aim of the living income differential is to safeguard cocoa farmers against price shocks. This is historic. It is the very first time African countries have managed to enable international acceptance of a premium beyond agreed prices of an internationally traded commodity. The oil sector have it in OPEC, but cocoa has never had it. Today, between Ghana and Ivory Coast, the world has accepted that a premium must be paid. It's a beginning. It is our belief that it will come even higher as we improve the agronomic practices that we have detailed here. As output increases and quality increases, you can still ask for more.
Oman FM.
The present government, through Cocoa Board, has also led the effort to retool and expand the total cocoa processing capacities of the entire Ghanaian-owned cocoa processing sector, while embarking on a massive campaign to boost both local consumption and international sale. If you want more than 6%, you have to process, and that is the aim of this government. Under the MPP government, WAMCO, which was shut down by the NDC in 2013, is now fit for purpose. It remains operational and is profit-making and employing hundreds of Ghanaians. The reopening of WAMCO is not an outlier. It emphasized the various interventions carried out by the Nanado-led MPP government to increase local cocoa processing and value addition. Similar support has been extended to other local cocoa processing factories, such as the Cocoa Processing Company, that's CPC, the Niche Cocoa Industry Limited. You've been eating their cocoa, it's brilliant. Plot, that is PLOT Enterprises Ghana Limited, which also is producing local artisanal cocoa. Now, the total volume of locally processed cocoa has moved from 27%, that I began by saying, to a record high of 40%. This brings Ghana closer to achieving the 50% processing target that was earmarked by this government to be attained in the next couple of years. Now, regarding small-scale cocoa processing and artisanal cocoa product manufacturing, the current rules for the supply of cocoa requires companies to purchase not less than 50 tons of cocoa. In view of the fact that most SMEs in cocoa processing need smaller quantities of cocoa beans for their operations, a committee made up of representatives from Cocoa Board, the FDA, and Cocoa Value Addition Artisans Association of Ghana, that is Cocoa Value Addition Artisans Association of Ghana, COVAG, have been constituted to develop strategies for value addition and local market access for artisanal chocolate and small-scale cocoa processing. So we are getting to that point where we are producing quality cocoa in Ghana, consuming it on the domestic market, and seeking to export and dominate the international market with our peculiar flavor. Moreover, government has already announced plans to further expand local cocoa processing by allocating a significant proportion of the US $600 million loan facility from the African Development Bank to fund the scaling up and processing of cocoa beans. In addition, it has signed an agreement for the establishment of a new cocoa processing factory at Sekwiwioso in the Western North region to further increase local processing value addition and to create jobs. This is apart from the other international entities, Cadbury and Fry and others who are within the Tema industrial enclave. The government is already embarking on a major campaign to boost both local consumption and international sale of processed cocoa. It's also exploring new market avenues in Asia, particularly in China and India, where there are ready markets for the sale of Ghana's processed cocoa, which is arguably amongst the best in the world. In doing all this, the thorny question of what happens to the aged cocoa farmer comes into play. And as we are speaking, and indeed this morning and yesterday, the Chief Executive of Cocoa Board has had occasion to speak to it. The cocoa pension scheme for farmers is on. All the processes, stakeholder consultations, the trustees, everything and the regulatory requirements with National Pensions Regulatory Authority are on track. And I believe that I will leave that to them, since he's had the privilege of speaking to it himself yesterday and this morning. But it is a fact. It is happening. Our cocoa farmers are going to get pensions. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the NPP government has performed far better than the Mahama-led administration when it comes to the cocoa sector. Leadership, decisive leadership to sustain an anchor industry, a backbone of Ghana's economy. The NPP, led by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has performed far better than candidate Mahama's NDC when it comes to managing that sector. Indeed, the NDC, over the 8 years of John Mahama and partly the late President Mills, cannot point to one innovation that they dreamt of and created in order to help farmers. Rather, all they tried to do was maintain what Kufuor did, and even that they bastardized with the free fertilizer distribution and the mismanagement of the bonus systems. Today, cocoa farmers are far better off than yesterday, and tomorrow looks even more promising. We are, however, as a nation, constantly reminded of the immeasurable sacrifices and roles that our cocoa farmers play in the development of this country. We are therefore asking that we be allowed to continue in power, for more, to do more for the cocoa farmer, to introduce and implement policies that will inure to the collective benefit of our farmers, and strengthen Cocoa Board to do even more for our farmers. Our humble warning to cocoa farmers.
Oman FM. Shaping the nation.
Their dependence and all well-meaning Ghanaians is this: keep candidates Mahama's hands away from your cocoa. He is the alternative, and when it comes to the welfare and well-being of the Ghanaian farmer, candidate Mahama is dangerous. He does not know how to manage the economy. He does not know how to help the cocoa industry. He has no clue what the needs of the farmers are. To him, cocoa is just an avenue for corruption, leaving the industry and the farmer to suffer. Stay with Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the NPP to protect the progress made so far and transform the industry for the welfare and well-being of all Ghanaians. Thank you very much.
Shaping the nation. Oman.
Ononaye, Director of Communications. NPP Amanyoko no na ekasa ede ema omo na otenenka se o kasafa efa mfaso ayenya ewokoko ho ene ewo Alisa Hotel hasia me na ekasa enunti NPP Amanyoko no Communications Director and otenenka nti obesa dane nyina ni akọ yenia yaka nkasemo ama amansan etimi atiase yi enunti sabridi o de beko yenia yakasem ama yetimi ate ensem na okan nyina etimi ate yen konkofa eno so sene o chim
ehwe de kandimia obetimi de Ghana akonanim de de nisuade hu eso de wachire se wo akukudru ene abadaye a obetimi de man akonanim na ene ye de yakane ane to koko yakuafo ene de yeye ne koko mu ene yeye de ato nsene so ahwe de NDC John Mahama NDC etimi yeye ene de Nana Addo NPP abaye na de yesisi ayi hu an se John Mahama NDC no omo atwataw omo baaye no koko a de be hye o munsa kofo nhihye ye panti enyini ko opepi baako afibia no omo brace no etiba fom se wi na di enti na etiba fom ihye bia ni ho nhihye ya na aye papa eba fertilizer car say the chain ekuafo a anyi hu yi sinipi nti fertilizer no de change na no nuanom ne afefo ne namfofo a ben aban no esan sesa fertilizer no ekoton di eba sikasem a mane to apekra chese koko sikasem efa bonus a ne de dum wo ento so sika de dum wo ni na no wo de ni di twem kra ne akate yade ya ne tisi koko so a mo ye hwe ha ema ade a ne wo se nka aban boa na yekuafo no ahoden wo fom anko musum na egina yie no omugya akatesem no ehye koko kuafo ne nsa omba ya no mabedane seedlings na go so se wa ko sisi ama ekuafo no bebri nyamo ahoden nti akate emmene yen emma western north ni eastern region baby ananka yinu wasro pa production no etiba fom se wi eno achi no omukon bedo kuku roots no a omampanyi kufo ye de bae na nadwen ni se obi yi akwan na tututu nkrase na yeyi kuku no a de ababa bi a ebitimi aboa no na ye de abatema no omde omuhu ne se akwaye ade bi a abeka dodode no ho enti omudwabu mu a na omuni nyina so bia ba bi ombepiska na omde atua enti omo bobo ka kesie bum ewo koko rus no mu enso ye beto ye ampaba ye beso mu no ye siesia ma wo mo na wo si tu om ka koko rus ye tua ehika ko 1 billion cedis de na wo si twa so ye siesie ni yi no ye siesie ni ye akate nso ye ne na tentam ama ne aban eba wo fu mu a oyi enuadada no ono ana ho odin wonje kuani ne sika wasan dua ono ana ho odin eno so saa onyi kuani ne sika na wasan hwen ahweso ama wo mu ye ho adwuma no omo timi ahweso mfie mienu a ne nyina no aban eni tua ho ka ama bibia ekototi nti ene uye kuani a ujina onaso se aban boawo ama katititiru a ha adwen pa no wabrasie aban sa de afidie bia ba ye friend hampruna slasher ene wayi adom a edisisie ene eye no afiri ho adom a edisisie eye no afiri ho enti ene no unya pruna slasher ni bia edom wo pa e ma ye adwumaden aban asa de hand pollination aban hand pollination no omutimi wode wonsa etoatoa egun hyirani a eduane gun hyirani a wode wonsa toatoa eno netimi ma opagya uko dodo a ekodua ba akoso ekwachichichiri ebi free aduomu pe anka wanfa wonsa anya obenya no wode wonsa ya etimi pagya ko ahasa eye eduaba ebeba kuku dua ba akoso we nyina no aban de nebunu ena eye awo chiro akwan chire soronko a wahihye bibi efe no farmer cooperatives ntinema na aban ye ni nyina no eye inu eye fertilizer eye hand pruna slasher no eye hand pollination no de fa cooperatives yimu a nebunu ene damu a boa na entity soronko nso aban dia ka ho no wafa nipa 1300 ewa adwuma mu a omomom titiye no ebi ka saa mebuni sie kasai aban sha asie no me 11000 ne omodru 30000 saa mebunu no nso akoye adwuma so nkokora amakoku eho adwuma ayefe na adikasie baako nanado danko akufuado ene Ivory Coast aban aye ene se omotimi aka omadwene abom ama omani kwasi buoni atentam atene kwakwa se afebie oton koku a obetua $400 aka ton bia ebe nsi da se bibifo etimi yire so omni buoni atwe ewa dia ye ton bibiri ma ama buoni agye atom se obetua sika ni bi aka ho enti ne no $400 bibia obeton koku ton ba ko bia a friend living income differential ebendi onsem e ma otimi di siesie bono sebe ya bono etiko fomu a sei won hihye nyina ye hwe mbulu ye hwe ma enkuku enti ye hihye ya ye be hye ma ne mbulu ni monyam afi bia no ye be kuku hihye bia ye be hye ma eni mbulu ni kuku mo dwuma mo ni monyam ni nyina ni se ye pese ye ma edom digitum se kuku adono enye ekuyayo bia ehye nipa so se kuyayo kwa na emu eye adwuma soronko a boni be ka se eye business kese a oye ni ya obenya mfaso enti aban da achi nhihye pa ne se opesenki ebenya na nka kuku no ye do ne ha ka tete na edi yesoa ni nyina kono opesenki esakira no ne fiti ne kese pa wa ha yetimi fiti emu be oha nchichi moduonu e wa ha nti si e ka sei ye ba tumi mu na yetimi eye nhihye no aduonu enso pe oha nchichi mu no aduonu enso ena ya pejam eko aduanan efiri de ni free aduoso eko aduanan enti ya ye bipa ye ni da so ne se ebekọ yenim eba saa nsakire ebeba ne se ye benye sika botene aburochire sika ewo ha ebesa ma emebunu pi enya adwuma enso aye enti osisi koko de ya ye koko mu a eno na kwaye adwuma bia eno na etai ye mai economy echi aban bi obeba bia wantimi anye koko hu hihye pa na chese aban no nie ni so ade hu bia ma mpuntuo ewo ye mai mu ha na saa ne ne yasese akire mu amama hu se de MPP abanya na na do danko akufuado eden ni mu no wa ye adwuma so pegya koko no esi baabia NDC fo ntimi nyenta omutena ho no omo ntimi anye omutena ho de digya omo dwiri gui nti yesra mo ya maame no me papa no me nua no mu a mo kuya mu a mo ye koko mo hwe ni ye na mo ama John Mahama amen koko fobiem o hwe koko motie ya on benfo no ne benfo no kina enti koko motie no fama de obetimi aboa na koko efuo no enyini fefefe de obeba be siesie akate na mawo a emoka de obeba be do amawo a emoka de obeba odi eduro beguso a emoka de obeba a obema nhyeni magu fefefe ama aduabana ba bibiri a emoka obefa ne nyina hoka na wasan atokoko na mawo na oho ato enenso osisa nipa no anso se obesisi school dan nkete ewo mbiambia bia temu bia odokoko bia sebe ya obanso ebenya ehon mfaso ono ne yedi ekoko motie ma no enye John Mahama onim die oye ti awie madawoma eda moase ene masopa modi atie ye mombo devro no eba koko dia untimi yina na do ni MPP aban enfrim ye ne eto aso a ye be sakira koko ama sika abam ama asafa ne ntoma pa efra ye mai mu ha koko nti ne kurobi ni agidi koko nti na kurobi ni agidi ye ne do koko free 1911 ebesi 1970 a na ye dikan wiase afa na nyina ni etokoko etoton ewa amanone ene eno ahwere ye enso enseye na na do wo hoye de se ya boban ni amadwo mama amfa ne benkum a mechia na dia yenim se ye bekọ yenim ede mo asipi se motie ye
Oman FM 107.1. This is how it is done. Oman, shaping the nation. 107.1. This is how it is done. Oman, shaping the nation.
Nsema wodo kanyina no watimi aboni nyina tofa ewo yenia kan kasemo ade akire nti sabra me no kase de nsɛmtwerɛfoɔ nhyia mu no mode ne nyinaa aba na wie baabi edu ɛyɛ nsɛmmisa nsɛmtwerɛfoɔ ɛpɛ sɛ ɔmbusabisa na ano yi bi ɛwɔ hɔ a mpanimfoɔ ɛtumi ɛde ama mede deɛ ɔwɔ ahene ntwebo si ako yɛde si ha na mo studio no ɛgye mo ɛde ama mo na election reference center of akeke ne god nasar bidi ako mo hɔ a motumi atoa so ama yɛn nsɛmtwerɛfoɔ nhyia mu no nyinaa aba na wie ɛwɔ Alisa Hotel yɛde tiefo nyinaa ase.
Abusa for some muja kwa baby baba Oman 107.1 FM election reference center and na yes na yako Alisa Hotel NPP aye press conference ewo Alisa Hotel na Uraya Boaben Asamoah NPP communications director and member of parliament for Adentan constituency the Greater Accra region and na wo year press conference no na nyina mo center around Kuku nti de Kuku hu nsem and wo de tuja ya wo ahene so de report no ebreye na abusa Kuku nsem no de kase ye kan ene ne ki wi hia be na wotwe be mienu kopa ansa ne ya etimi aka edi eduba bi na immediately yan kwa homa no so na ani owura benefit Kuku di enkomo na ne yam sa time na bi tie papa kakra bi tima ye no ye be ye aka be mo akwa baba Oman FM so.
Oh, good afternoon, Michelle, TF4, you know.
At TF4, so much, so more, that's a pass was a bar. Now, another time, no, yes, I can bear 10 minutes per MPP quiet press conference, the coffee into no. Your boy tell me, I know Wednesday, I cannot get a better was.
You, Tuesday, Western North,
the patch and you focus on Western North.
Okay. Western North, no, was carved out of Western region. Tama, new regions, you know. The main ethnic groups in Western region here, Fanti 18.2%, Wasa 11.1%, Fifi 10.9%, Inzima 9.5%, Ashanti 7.3%, Ahanta 6.2%, Ewe 5.9%, Banda, Brong including Banda 3.3%. Kusasi 2.8, now win 2.5. Western region as a whole, no one more kingmakers who we need data crowd center and the Western, then no who them soon plus and now vote from your stronghold. In Western region in 2004. President Kufuor in a 56.6 in our first round, and this in a 40.9. 2008 first round, Nana as candidate in a 47.6, and NDC late most now 47.1. A call runoff no, Nana in a 48.1, and the most now 51.9. 2012. The MPP Nana on 43.8%, and the NDC now 54.4%. 2016 Nana jumping from 43.8% to 53.3%, NDC bar from 44.4% to 45.3%. The whole of Western region, seats, MPP was 16 and the NDC was 10. Now focus on Western North. There are 8 seats in Western North. NDC was 5. And the MPP was 3. They will run it through seats in our Hano and the margin of
Western North 9 seats.
9.
I am said 9 seats. It's only a young project. I think say 9.
Okay. Yeah.
What's your best?
I'll win. NDC they win margin of victory 6,133. Bia West NDC they win margin of victory 13,802. That's parliamentary na mibugwe. Bibiani Avian Subekwai. MPP ne win margin 3,244. Bodi and this ne win margin 4,004. Sifia Contombra MPP win margin 296. Sifi also MPP win margin 5,631. Swamang NDC win margin 12. The Juabosu NDC win margin 1,629. These are how close the results were in the Ibia. Those close, you know. Ibia, one better side said they will show appreciation and vote for MPP, or it has been bedeviled by internal bickering. Those an anako hono my incumbent MP no olusi to Alfred Dobin the prime minister to one million as Oman Bumnes MPP to sit na on within ye.
Oman FM.
Yes, I wish sa 9 constituencies na wo hono. Dodo no ankasa ye NDC for constituencies ana
that magician susa.
Magician
yes, apart from Bibiani and here to be acquired, margin year 3,000, yeah, 6,133. In the body, when NDCC is 4,004. And Bibiani and here so MPPC 3,200. But here we beat the Swama. NDC we name margin 12. Sylvia Contombra MPP we name margin 296.
Oman FM.
Margin 296.
What put 296 also?
It's a 12 class room.
From my NDC we need margin of 12.
Akaba NTC out still no even politics they had even 2,000 crore no well we be go put over 10 deficit of about 9,000 crore as I been about 6,000 ka hunti no enti akaba wo hwe sa region hono na almost from that na no mo pese omo eti omo ho enya western north na no mo ayesa petitions no one na this one ntimi mbemu MPP buy no omatim enya say this one no nyame ado awukada say be say da hwe range ho na hwe development ankasa akoso to gidi say creation of new region here me fa de say in code omonso say omo gidi say omonso ade omo ho say omo se pedo no etimi eboa in terms of voting party na bitima ashepu de kakra na.
Well, it all depends on how the MPP will campaign. If that is what Adam Akomaso, the Munya or some boho just to show that they must show appreciation. Some of them 12 votes, 296. Now they're number.
Now so far no, will be to say oko body and need jabos who hold say ya. Minim sakiba wo be wa ye eyi kakra bi do de wani adi akiri so far politics koso ho se candidates no man and this the one na samba MPP for the new ones na contest o mo minim say dynamics not to say is it still in their favor say and this will be chance amend this are 260 na board ni Jaboso especially
Jaboso NDC seat 1,629 and the board NDC 4,004. You see candidate for bar and what is advantage and disadvantage. Some tokwa AC one party in Muno bar. One will lose you to know what they want to say. Some tokwa knew where they can work, and for those who did not even vote, you know. One thing I must also add, God said the pattern of turnout. When there's a change in government, the pattern is low. Around 60-65. The following election, the pattern is over 70%. So it looks like a high turnout election. And that is likely to include those who did not vote. because especially if the new regions, they've come with increased access, indications of improved people's lifestyle. There's going to be gratitude vote. If there hasn't been any, it will remain the same.
Now, apart from say ABA free SHS, Betaka say and the university nationwide Ghana will be here free SHS. Yakopo Adum Abba. Western North Hornos no. Or more aspirations. They said never better on motor share free abayin ho. Yet Timo Musa Samo or move voting party no.
Oh, you see, God with Obia vote according to the well-being. A job because about Mexica. Most of them farmers, cocoa farmers, they want more money to be able to send their kids to school. They should be so Mexica, the brown version of Singapore. Roads improve. This is the bottom line across all the constituencies.
And so far, no, would you need the changes about?
Some of them, all depends on the campaign. In the Ghana card, Libya got very instructive. Over 3 million or 15.5 million cards on my issue. The top 10 occupations, is those who work for themselves. Farmers over 3 million, students who work for drivers, for retailers, for barbers, over 3 million work on their own. They are in the forefront, or the eye of the economy. And the eye of the economy, they should be able to operate in a serene and environment. And the important point is, yes, they've gotten a new region, but almost attempt to say. And one thing is, for these are two one is an incumbent, one is an ex-president. People are going to compare Mama's 4 years and Nana's 4 years. That's it, name to say. And I'm ready to talk.
And Chanaye, Kobaba, was a question. So far, no, Minya records no ye Panaka Betimaye exact in terms of figures, but Manyan say Western North for no corner. Figures na your registration new voter register ni no nipa no ense so atikakra about 60,000 na especially dwaboso ene bu di hodmo no asams na hi ene akando mo ewo no so tesa no a agbe na obetima awonsusu aso bi o do be win na so do be lose no so
so atia we nim nimpa party and voters ni supporters anko to aba. You will never know. I saw there could be a majority of the ruling party now called Tuaba. And to what came by Ukwada, a better those who suffered, who are likely to suffer the reduction in the votes. Because Joabusu, it was just 1,629.
And the opposite watching say figures in the submit me at them no on the voting day no so I'm uncle for uncle to the and any to be of no significance.
That is it.
Mate and I can what the FA me adma be I'm sure say ABI baba back and ya baba beside the fact was decided time no echo na ukada be for kakra briefly.
Yo.
Mati, in terms of for Uncle Ben Nevson, we poster and then editor ma Daily Dispatch and I'm returning. Yami had no ukada because of time in Intino. Yami had no way of boss. Yami had no ukada no. Yabese enyano and Dr. John Fes so na yasa I didn't come kafa ho. We are ne what's the regional chairman of MPP na yakwa akudi enkomo. Bible said ni ye kano. Western region, Western North, ye chemu no ya Western North abano. Ya won 9 constituencies and there was our region hono no. Na 9 constituencies no entie ye nya no de. Metimaka acho say encouraging. Entie nya de. Metaka say encouraging. Entie wo ya was a few so ho and they would jaboso and they would booty and they were our win and they was swaman baby and yasu be quiet bia east bia west and they were a contomra into no sad no 9 constituencies ye de be cheap bia beto from bia busha ye maswati and na so na little commission so abie nominations no yem say up to Thursday na yeso motimi adibia bi wa person kokko test bia no akwa file wodie na ke brebe mu a nke be culture commission en ni nyum ka sele ke ne Evans Macron director of elections e MPP so ke so ko diko but every press conference ni no wa fatari na ofa yes we just be 5 minutes pe woni e ko
me just and no MPP press conference in Tiama Western North no en Tiama ko ba me just say e be share that to asim proper on Wednesday e better that yes na at my council share margins na and so
there be when so
margins no between MPP and NDC no and so me baby any and also traditionally no higher MPP seats and na MPP so I change candidate so MPP say I change candidate candidate no so no Oshena Nimudu.
Yeah.
But Kutu regional minister.
It is when you say on your lightweight.
There be lightweight. We will say after primaries no na mentime ho asibi. So
e back akra. My yam so much resolve in tem.
Yes. We am so more resolve so mutimi ewie dia. Say if imagine or the way in here no is anything to go by there. So, no imagine or the number after of being winning bear 70-something%.
Yeah, or Chinimu.
Yes,
or Chinimu.
The regional minister. And the set party need to be managing ye. So, no being regional minister. No, what do I say? Results by any regional. So be pay a craby. So more baby am said 3 traditional areas. Intino so mutimi to Tony ye dear. It means a beer no. Yes, Bibia and Quanco Bemwa, imagine no bit me a more action MPP. And other seats no so no. Other than this is Omunino, Ubia at Tatit and Yonko. But what is certain is baby and a caneno a year no go area.
They said
MPP.
They said
and to say baby and a can NDC to me win it comfortably. So
it's a hotel in the horse. Of a man in Tia Cropos make us say, and this for my say, Ombe lunch on campaign and Cassa. Number one more lunch in Western North.
Interesting.
Very interesting because almost almost mono. Or more numbers never hold a co-form to do. It will move you so strategically.
What to the Bonnie become? Western North, a Hon and Ghana, Yia Coco.
Oh,
2010, 2011. She said the facts netiano. Ghana in about 350,000 metric tons of cocoa from Western North. Well, then see, I can say, cocoa solely shoot disease no. Don't friend cocoa sasabro. Na anonom yare no. E betie si ho be enfie be enum siani. What? Enna. Eno no sa yare no ne ho ahomte papa.
Ho ahomete.
E kan cocoa a wo ko enko.
E sai so.
Ade aseso ya ne so otwa cocoa nua no. Ena sai. Nti atimi adi cocoa ni nyama say ya kasai say no cocoa yenya free ho no say about 160 metric tons
160,000 metric tons.
Yes, 160,000.
First quantity number 400,000.
Yes, let's just say na swat more than 200,000 metric tons. Cocoa so there ya dey apafo ne hwesofo na eye onse cocoa no omo don kra nya omo nyina na free ho
do na ho
ene ya de ko Western North no e ba bia awowo bebre no mkokoje cocoa e wom say ndi ba bi free ho a Dr. Free no
do cocoa free
no mo do mo cocoa ni ade but nkrofo bebre nso ho mo koje asase mo de do cocoa as investment
yeah
no mo use enhwesofo lebrafo na doma menchefo so engrofo bebre na wo ho no asase no na asase wura no de aba no domi enche
ebusa ana abunu
na abunu depende se one ado koko na hweso ni aba de a ono na hweso no ote ana odo ho no ye bibia ote koko na oni ni chemiensa odi emienu ne de ba so ono anso na odi asase no kekema no na ono akọ de a so se ono adodua koko no mani nyini a odi ba akọ no nso ni de emienu arrangement no doso na settlers and I migrants
over 35 seconds na aka yeko
enti no gone koko na akọ form ho ama enkrofo bebre nso omko hoko deep ha
oba free ho back
enkrofo bebre free ho sankrofo ni nyina nso so na dodo na no yenimans
NDC
said omo constituency
yeah
so enti no o hwa koko adwuma akọ form western north no because they say ye twa koko ni nyina agu asa dua foforo
the adwuma ni ho mamo
agu ya na asase wura na ba o se koko na mde ma o enti ye twa koko na agu di asase na ba be di me ho afa na mi say dua foforo me dua na ye yi a na me mo aba beti in fact enipa bebre afiri ho god enipa bebre afiri ho a na
eye phenomena yeah
oh yeah yes okay enti at 8,000 crofo ati ewo ho no
ofasiba lady tamaso one just about so di abon online one hwe ya
program we discipline ya
ai tie di you need ko ba bisa and was how you ba kira ko bi so agu yeso abusafo anything no fa ko ba kwa tie tena ase ne se bre no aso ese wase de kwampo a aboboa no na wa ko pie ai eno nti election reference center produced by Solomon Sasumensa and Dr. Muzi Okai just say or church from church kama and then Kwaku Abuaje what for as can focus me na ka ho and the social media for vidash ne kosima aha mu nyina so ho no mo ka ho mo bom homodi nyame adoma wukuada ye besa aba western north nyame adoma western north region chairman ba betenase ni ye din komo ye be di enkomo pa nyame adoma wukuada ba ye kwedie ene silver lady obehu yenum kama na du bia na ode du na fam je sese de ibe aduane ye bedin die ni nyina no ekoso nyame ado be kina ye be hye be dase